Good afternoon, everyone. Today, we are going to tackle the eclectic method. But before we start, here is the objectives of our discussions. At the end of these discussions, the students are expected to understand the principles of the eclectic method, learn some basic classroom techniques, and apply these learnings to be an effective educator in the near future. The eclectic method. An eclectic approach is one which utilizes the best or the most appropriate and useful parts of the existing methods. It is the set of techniques to be used by teachers in teaching. These methods is broad and may include every kind of learning activity and saves learners from monotony. When we say monotony, it is the lack of interest. This method is helpful in all kinds of skills, in stimulating a creative environment, and gives the learners confidence. These are some general principles which comprise the eclectic methods in teaching English. First, language learning must be meaningful, real. In teaching a language, it is a must for it to be meaningful with a sense, and one way to implement it is to give your learners a deepest understanding of it. Second, translation is a specialized language skills and is inappropriate for the beginning language learners and for most teachers to rely on as a method of learning. In teaching a language, it does not need for the teachers to just give a translation of a word in order to be understood by the learners, but try to explain it and give a specific examples using it in a sentence to be able to be understood by the students. And in order for them to understand its functions and usage. Third, language learning method should be done in a target language. So, focused on the target language. What language to be taught is the focus of your teaching. Next, mimicry, memorization, and pattern practice do not teach language. In this method, memorization, mimicry, and pattern is avoided. Maybe it is appropriate in classroom needs, but the tendency for the teacher to be overused it can make the discussions stilted and boring. So, in teaching, it is very important for you as a teacher that you engage your students in an interesting discussions. Next, reading aloud, oral reading, while useful during the decoding stage, does not teach reading. Vocabulary acquisition, the use of a large varied vocabulary should come early. Vocabulary should be dealt with meaningful context. Retention is not required of all new items, but continuous appropriate usage is encouraged. Next, reading and writing should not be delayed but taught as soon as the student is ready. As long as the students are ready, take the advantage to teach. Do not delay until the students or the learners lost their attentions or interest. And last, structure is still generally accepted as being most efficiently taught in some organized way. So the structure is really important. The structure of the concept is really important. It makes the flow of discussion smooth and organized.
Basic classroom techniques. Here are a few simple techniques which are not difficult to remember, but which few teachers manage to observe all the time. First, look all the students in the class. When you are teaching, which switch your gaze evenly from the one side to another, you will have advantage of knowing what is going on in the class the whole time, and that you are aware who is paying attention and who isn't, and you can adapt your teaching accordingly. Second, vary your techniques for asking questions. Questions are a way of compiling the attention of your students. Third, don't go around the class. It's better not to ask a question when you are going around the class. Otherwise, those farthest away from the questioning will know they can relax for some time before their turns comes, while those who are already answered can sit back and dream knowing that they will probably not be asked again. Fourth, include everyone. Make sure that everyone is called on equally. Unless you make a conscious effort, it's very easy to forget a few students, particularly those who sit at the back or in the wings of the class. Fifth, make sure the class is seated in the best possible way. It may be impossible to avoid having your students sitting in rows facing you. However, ensure that empty seats are only at the back and that everyone is grouped as near the front as possible.
Number 6, limit teacher talking time. The more a teacher talks, the less his students be given the opportunity of expressing themselves. A teacher should ideally be a stimulator who gets his students to talk. Of course, when when training a class to listen and understand, you have to speak more but try to strike a balance. Number 7, write clearly. Clear blackboard work is essential. If you've got a lot to put on the board, try to arrange it in an orderly and logically fashion so that the whole pattern is clear. Number 11, take account of different level within the class. There are a number of ways of dealing with the problems. Ask the brighter student difficult questions and then ask the same question later to those who lag behind. Instruct the student to teach each other and talk about what they know to those who don't. Sit a more advanced student next to less advanced one so that he can help do group work where mix brighter student with those we know less. Try and get those who are behind to do more homework and more English outside of the classroom. Encourage the less advanced student as much as possible and find out if there are areas where he is good so that we can call on him to show what he knows. At advanced level, it is sometimes worth getting students to teach a point which they have prepared. The class will probably be more interested in listening to the one of themselves than to you. And one of the best way of learning a language paradoxically is to teach it. Okay, so example, I give the explanation of number 11. The student must have to encourage the English language of speech and give him more instruction. We shall know about that every student difficult to know about different speech of language. Okay, so number 12, deal with individual problems. It is often best to deal with individual problems after the class. The students concerned will feel that you really care about his progress. If you spend additional time on him, it is obviously much easier to get to the root of any problem in tight fashion than in a large class. Number 12, explanation. As a teacher,
the student must be give more concern about what happens in his life because everything what they do to their everyday life we must give importance to him as student. Number 13, correct your student systematically. Even in the middle of a discussion in English, state the correct phrase or words gently without interrupting the student. It is also helpful to note down mistakes and then to go over them at the end of the discussion. 13. Explanation. We need to explain more to him about the topic and give here some examples about the discussion. Last 14. Use their names correctly. Make sure you pronounce your student name correctly. Last explanation number 14, we need to use proper speech of the nouns because they need to more use proper name correctly. That's all. Thank you.
So, I am Gerald Bitancor Sanoni, and from now on, I am going to tackle all about evaluating lesson plan. So, when evaluating lesson plan, we need to address the following question. So, what are they? First, what are the objectives of the lesson? When evaluating a lesson, it is important to know what is the objective first. It will help us understand the goal of the lesson and what standard should be taken on that lesson. Second, what type of evaluation is used? That is, how do you measure student mastery of the lesson? By knowing the capabilities of student, it is important so as a teacher, we will consider if the lesson need to have a different explanation. Third, what do the students need to know before they begin the lesson? Do your students know this? If they don't, you must plan and conduct review activities. By evaluating the lesson, we should always ask ourselves if our students have already an idea about this. So, if it yes, we can only explain them at a little, but if they don't know, we should help to conduct activities that will help more understand the lesson. Does the lesson provide activities or suggestion for establishing meaning for the language? If it doesn't, you must supplement the lesson with phase 1 activities. Of course, we tend to teach in the approach in which we learn best ourselves. However, students learn in a diverse ways, so we have to include a variety of learning approaches to meet students' needs. There are several subcomponents to consider when selecting and organizing the instructional strategies or learning activities. Are there communication activities? If there are not, supplement the lesson with phase 3 activities. So, based on the question on number 5, this is all about the closure of a lesson. So, if the closure of a lesson is left out in planning, an important teachable moment is overlooked. An effective closure activity is like summarizes, clarifies, and reinforces what has been learned and helps make us the learning stick and students' long-term memory. So, at the end of the lesson, student should walk away with a desire and compelling need to retain and use what was learned. Number 7. Does the lesson provide for recycling and recombining of vocabulary and structures which you know your students need? If it doesn't, prepare additional activities. In your classes, students will have a valuable opportunity to pick up new vocabulary on a variety of topics. It is a good idea for you to encourage your students to revise this vocabulary on a regular basis in order for students to take ownership of these words and to start to use them confidently. Number 8. Are there sufficient pronunciation activities to meet the needs of your students? If there are not, supplement with additional pronunciation activities which focus on problem sound. So, in number 7, having a good pronunciation will make you more confident. You will be able to participate in conversation, getting to know your classmates and those around you much better. In this way, having a good pronunciation can help you make friends more quickly. Speaking will no longer be a hard activity but a fun way to improve your English communication and meaningful connection with other people.